Hello, Dr. Cinema here. I knew I was going to have to tackle this sooner or later. Starting back in 2012, there was a show known as Arrow that came onto the CW network and has been on the air ever since. It has spawned two spin off shows, The Flash and Legends of Tomorrow. In addition to those three shows, there was another show that was originally over at CBS but was later moved to the CW, and that show is Supergirl. And those four shows combined make up what many people have called the Arrowverse. While the cinematic version of DC Comics, the DCEU, Man of Steel, Batman v Superman, and Justice League, have been, let's say, underwhelming, with a success, Wonder Woman, the Arrowverse has been known to be a lot lighter in tone, generally speaking, than the DCEU, and, generally speaking, a lot more consistent and a lot more fun. Maybe a little bit on the cheesy side, but after the DCEU, wouldn't you like a little bit of cheese instead? So, just fixing some tape up here. I decided to finally put these four Arrowverse shows up against each other in a TV face-off, similar to what I did with the four Marvel Netflix shows. And just to be clear, Black Lightning is not in this face-off. While it was definitely inspired by shows like Arrow and Flash, there has been no confirmation that it is actually part of the Arrowverse, and according to the makers of Black Lightning, they would actually prefer to have a Black Lightning verse. So, for the purposes of this face-off, it will not be a part of this special edition of Movie Face-Off. So, TV Face-Off, four shows: Arrow, Flash, Supergirl, Legends of Tomorrow. 5 rounds. Let's do this. Hold on, let me get a drink. Quenches my thirst. So, round 1. Premise. There are a lot of similarities between these four shows, and one of them is the premise of each show. You have Arrow, which is a rich playboy, got stranded on an island for 5 years, saw the suicide of his father to help keep him alive. He comes back to Starling City, later named Star City, to become a vigilante eventually known as Green Arrow. He's gone by other names such as the Hood, Arrow. It's kind of confusing. But he has become a Batman-like vigilante using a bow and arrow to fight crime in Star City. The premise of The Flash started off as a spin-off of Arrow, where a man named Barry Allen gets struck by lightning caused by a particle accelerator in Central City. He gains the ability of super speed thanks to the lightning and thanks to a more supernatural concept known as the Speed Force. And he becomes a hero of Central City. Then you have Supergirl, the cousin of Clark Kent, aka Superman. She was launched off of Krypton right before its destruction, like Superman, but she was suspended in time for a couple of decades, but she finally landed on Earth, and she has taken up the mantle of Supergirl after years of Superman doing it seemingly by himself, and decided to do the same thing in National City. Yeah, that's in National City. Legends of Tomorrow is a more unique premise, taking several minor characters from both the Arrow and Flash shows. These group of vigilantes slash minor criminals are brought together by a time-traveling agent known as Rip Hunter to help save history and time from being destroyed and rewritten. So as you can tell, one of these is not quite the same as the others. Don't get me wrong, there are good parts of both the premise of Arrow, Flash, and Supergirl. But there's no doubt they have a lot of similarities to other properties not in the Arrowverse. I mean, Arrow is obviously being a different kind of version of Batman. Flash is sort of like Supergirl, who is essentially, in some people's eyes, just a female version of Superman. Well, Legends of Tomorrow, they're bringing together all of these, I don't want to say B-list heroes. Well, I guess maybe a couple are B-list, but mainly C and D-list people together on the same team or on the same show and really give a new life, a new sense of popularity. And while definitely these lower name characters have definitely had their own adventures in comics and animated shows, really hasn't been done on the small screen in live action. So this round goes to Legends of Tomorrow. Man, that was a long round. 2. Supporting cast. Arrow, you have Diggle, Felicity, Thea Queen, and a few other vigilantes that were recruited by Oliver Queen. On the Flash, you have Cisco, Iris. Why can't I think of the other two, but you know who they are. Supergirl, you have John Jones, aka Martian Manhunter. Yeah, he's there. Alex, Jimmy Olsen, a couple other people as well. With Legends of Tomorrow, it's like a whole collection of people, so it's really hard to get a good grasp on who is a supporting cast member. And all of these supporting cast members of the other shows, though, definitely have their strong points. However, there is no doubt that Arrow and Supergirl haven't exactly had all good moments. I mean, a lot of people complain about the relationship between Felicity and Oliver, which really did damage on the show, especially in season 3. And there are definitely some characters over at Supergirl in the supporting cast that definitely don't get the kind of attention that they should be given. However, the supporting cast of Flash have well fleshed out stories that make them more than just associates of Barry Allen. They actually have their own arcs and stories to tell. So, I'm giving this round to The Flash. Alright, round 3, villains. While definitely a few of these shows have definitely shared villains in the past, we're going to be looking at just how they are presented in their own shows. Well, this shows that they are, you know what, they share a lot of villains, but let's try to keep it separate as possible. Arrow, we have villains such as Malcolm Merlin, Deathstroke, Ra's al Ghul, Damien Dark, and Prometheus. With Flash, we have Reverse Flash, Professor Zoom. Is it Professor Zoom or is it just Zoom? Saviatar? It's a doppelganger Barry Allen, an evil Barry Allen. And the Thinker. You have, over at Supergirl, you have Supergirl's aunt, whose name is slipping my mind. Okay, I'm just gonna stop right here saying I don't really have that much memory of the villains over at Supergirl. I mean, they're definitely interesting when I actually get to see them, but they don't really stick out the most in my mind. So, Supergirl is obviously not running the show in this round. Flash has definitely had its good villains. I mean, Reverse Flash is one of the best the Arrowverse has ever seen. But, as you can tell, Zoom and the God of Speed, aka Evil Barry Allen, are definitely repeats and a little bit copy-paste of Reverse Flash. Even though Zoom is his own character over in the comics, it's kind of has a bit of a repetition problem over there. Arrow, though, has some of the best villains of the Arrowverse. Well, I can't forget Legends of Tomorrow, but we'll get to that in a moment. The Arrow show has Malcolm Merlin, who is definitely a very complex individual. You have Deathstroke, one of the most well-known villains of DC Comics. Ra's al Ghul, the trainer of Batman, even though Batman doesn't really officially exist in this Arrowverse universe, and they didn't really give him that much attention. You got Damien Dark, who, while didn't really do that well over an Arrow, got a much better reception over at Legends of Tomorrow. And you have Prometheus, a kind of villain that can only appear after several years and several seasons of Arrow stories. Now, while Legends of Tomorrow definitely have their own villains, such as Malice, it definitely had a lot of villains from other previous shows, such as Gorilla Grodd, Damien Dark, Malcolm Merlin, Reverse Flash, and Vandal Savage. So, Arrow really has some of the most personal, complex villains of the Arrowverse. Not all of them, but the most. So this round goes to Arrow. Time for round 4, the actual hero of the show. Alright. Arrow, you've got Green Arrow, aka Oliver Queen. The show has definitely given new life and popularity to the Green Arrow character, who has appeared on animated Justice League shows and had his own role over the show Smallville, but really hasn't really been given that much attention in mainstream media other than that. However, some people have said that he is really more of a light version of Batman, and those criticisms have some foundation. I mean, he does remind me a lot of Batman, and definitely a lot of similarities, even though he has enough of his own character. Flash, you have Barry Allen, a speedster superhero. He's definitely had his moments, but he's really more known for messing stuff up, especially for the Arrowverse as a whole. He has gone back in time to rewrite history for his own beneficial gain, causing this show's universe's version of Flashpoint, which really caused a lot of conflict and tension with a lot of characters, not just from The Flash, but from the other shows as well. So at times, Barry Allen can come up as a bit of a selfish, childlike superhero that doesn't really understand the full capabilities of his powers. Legends of Tomorrow, there's a little bit of a hard grasp on who's the central hero. In the first season, it could easily be the recruiter, Rip Hunter, but after that, it seems to be Sarah Lance, the original Black Canary, who seems to be more of a central leader. But it's focused on an entire group of characters and heroes that work together, so we really can't put a focus on any one hero, which is a bit of a disadvantage for this show. Supergirl, though. Supergirl. A lot of people say she's just a female version of Superman. In fact, I think I just said this complaint earlier in the video. But she's more than that. I mean, yes, she has a lot of the same powers and abilities of Superman, but the psychology of the character, her personality, her history in general is so much drastically different. Superman was raised as a human from the get-go. Supergirl came to Earth when she was a teenager, when Superman was already an adult, feeling she was truly all alone. And she's found ways to completely separate herself from Superman and actually kind of prove to be more of a real hero in a way. I mean, this could be stemming from the fact that I'm obviously a huge Supergirl fan. But there's a certain awe and inspiration with her that doesn't really come from any of the other heroes of this TV universe. So this round goes to Supergirl. Alright, 4-way tie. Round 5's coming up. What's it gonna be? Legacy of the show. When it comes to Flash and Supergirl, their legacies are very similar, actually. They're known as the more fun shows, at least compared to Arrow, that certainly have a level of humor and comedy that Arrow doesn't have. But they have struggled with their own problems, especially in recent episodes. With Flash, it's kind of repetition of villains and certain storylines that just don't really build up to the same kind of payoff that they had in earlier seasons. With Supergirl, it's starting to go in a bit of a muddled direction, not really fully not giving full stories or character arcs to some of its characters. Now, Arrow arguably has the biggest legacy of creating this Arrowverse universe. It's called Arrowverse. It started with him. However, you could argue that Smallville did it first, even though it never really spawned any spin-offs like Flash or Legends of Tomorrow. But another complaint with Arrow is that it's kind of have a little bit more bad stuff than good stuff. I mean, the first two seasons were very well received. But then season 3 is considered the worst season that introduced Ra's al Ghul, but seemed to completely abandon him just to focus on a romance between the hero and a character that was supposed to only have a one episode appearance. And season 4 definitely had its troubles. I mean, even though season 3 obviously had some sort of elements of magic in it, this went in a more full-out magic route which did not fit with the grounded tone of Arrow in general. Season 5 brought it on track, but now in Season 6 it's starting to repeat storylines and certain events that just were well done at a much earlier point of the show. Legends of Tomorrow got off to a rough start, with Season 1 not really having a good idea of what its tone should be. But then Season 2 and Season 3 really embraced the craziness of an idea of a show based on DC comic characters that chances are most people have never really heard of. And while Flash and Supergirl definitely had certain aspects of that, Legends of Tomorrow completely embraced it, doing storylines and events that just seem so out there yet so goddamn entertaining. And in fact, the spirit of the Arrowverse, you could argue, is actually strongest in Legends of Tomorrow. I mean, Arrow started off as a good show about a B-list character that really didn't get enough attention from most people. Legends of Tomorrow is bringing C and D-list characters that most people definitely haven't heard of, but giving new life and popularity to them. So you could really say that Legends of Tomorrow is serving the spirit of the Arrowverse more than Arrow itself and some of the other shows. So this round goes to Legends of Tomorrow, who wins the round and the TV face-off. Legends of Tomorrow is the best of the Arrowverse. So you guys probably have your complaints and suggestions and such. Comment down below, like this video, subscribe for more, and share with all your friends. Dr. Cinema, DC Comics. You may have your struggles with movies, but I'll always end up liking you more than Marvel. Until next time.